After 80 chapters of Jinbei not being in the story, he's finally back. We left Jinbei back in Whole Cake Island, in which he was trying to save his crew because they were going to sacrifice themselves for him, and the anticipation has been building. We weren't sure exactly what form of Jinbei we were going to get back. Some people thought he would die, some people thought he would lose some limbs. Based on what we see so far, Jinbei looks fine. Of course, there will be some explanation at some point, but so far, so good, right? But I think what's getting lost here is how significant Jinbei joining the Straw Hats is. Back in Fishman Island, when Luffy asked Jinbei to join him, of course, there was some symbolism there with Fishman and Human when Jinbei gave Luffy some of his blood, but I don't think people really understood the magnitude of what it meant for Jinbei to join the crew. In this chapter 976, there was a moment where Law and Kid, they were actually very shocked and very surprised and kind of dumbfounded that Jinbei was joining the Straw Hats. I mean, I think it's kind of twofold. The fact that it's Luffy, and of course Luffy already had a formidable crew, and adding a former warlord. I think people don't really think about that much, that Jinbei is a former warlord. So what's the significance of this? Because I think Jinbei is actually a big fucking deal, right? The reveal and how he came back, I don't think it was warranted. I think he should have had a much more grandiose appearance, but it was fine. We love Jinbei, so it is what it is. He's back in the story. We're gonna love it. But why is Jinbei such a big deal? Why is someone of Jinbei's stature joining the Straw Hats such a big deal? I mean, other than the obvious, the strength that he adds in the experience, but let's talk about Jinbei's past a little bit and everything Jinbei has been through and why he's going to be such an amazing addition to the Straw Hats. First, again, Jinbei is a former warlord. And for me, this was akin to Weevil joining Kid or Boa joining Law. These are two major forces in the One Piece world that is joining a candidate for the leader of the new school. Everyone is still jockeying for position. It's the Throne Wars. So every chess piece on the board that someone can bring to their side is even more significant now because we're in the end game in regards to the Throne War and trying to position yourself once one of these major powers fall. So for Kid and Law, seeing Jinbei, a former warlord, join Luffy's already bolstered crew is jarring. But what does Jinbei bring to the table? First off, Jinbei was a former soldier. He was a former soldier in Fishman Island, so he has experience there. He was obviously a former pirate with Fisher Tiger. He was Fisher Tiger's right-hand man. After Fisher Tiger left, he was captain of the crew for a while. Then Jinbei went on to do things with Whitebeard, gained experience from fighting people like Ace. Of course, again, he's a warlord, attached himself to Big Mom for protection. So again, Jinbei's personality is interesting because I think as a character, he prioritizes the fishmen. And I think it's perfect. It makes sense because the fishmen, they've been discriminated against and abused for a long time because they weren't viewed, on the same level as humans. And it's funny with Hody Jones, and he was kind of a creation of that discrimination in which fishmen, even though they are stronger, faster, more powerful, they weren't viewed on the same level as humans. So for a fishman, you can imagine just how disrespectful that is. And for Jinbei, I applaud him because no matter what, even though he goes from Whitebeard to Big Mom to Luffy, his crew and the fishmen, they're always a priority. So he loves his people. But I think Jinbei as a character, he provides a lot more than just adding power to something. The Gorosei talked about Jinbei joining the warlords. And of course he was offered it, and it was kind of a bridge. And as the Gorosei talked about, representing interracial harmony. So he plays a significant role in the One Piece world in which he's in a way uniting both worlds. That moment with him and Luffy, that is a lot deeper to the story than just, face value. And I think that's why it was so important for Luffy to add him to his crew because, indirectly, even though Luffy doesn't understand the depth of Jinbei attaching himself to Luffy, he felt it. He felt just how important Jinbei was, not only to him, but to society. And then Luffy, in a way, he's a genius with reading people. So offering Jinbei a spot on his crew was genius, not only in representation and symbolism, but also in strength and endgame. So Luffy's investment in the past in Fishman Island, even before then, is paying off now in Wano. Why Jinbei so significant here? After the Gorosei talked about Jinbei leaving and Jinbei opposing them after Marineford, they said that his loss will surely be felt because Jinbei, he was representing, like I said, harmony between the fishmen and the humans. I don't think people understand how significant the warlords are because I think it's been downgraded a bit, just how important and how much influence they have because Luffy's been defeating them. We don't see the huge ramifications of these people losing. Of course, a Crocodile going to jail, Cobra and Vivi, they could step in. Moria being defeated, he was, ruling in the middle of nowhere, so that wasn't really felt. Doflamingo falling, they even mentioned that, different armies were coming out of nowhere and people were being bolstered because Doflamingo, he was supplying weapons and all this stuff. You have to read a bit deeper to understand just how significant these warlords are. And for Jinbei, with the influence and connections he has, and also being a fishman himself, not only, again, the added strength and the bonus that is, Jinbei is pretty significant. Another example of that is Big Mom. This is besides the point, but after, Jinbei came to Big Mom and said that he is trying to leave her crew, the homies are telling Big Mom or asking Jinbei, like, why are you leaving? Big Mom says that it doesn't matter in the least. We're pirates, we live the way we want, which was, I think is pretty profound and goes to the theme of One Piece and just like pirates being free and doing whatever they want to do. But regardless, Jinbei is, I think, the embodiment of that. Of course, he has a duty to the fishmen, but he's been able to read what's to come. He's been able to attach himself to not only stronger people, but people with a lot more influence that could not only help the fishmen, but also progress him as a force in the One Piece world. But Big Mom says, the ritual cups of parent and child thrown back in my face is an affront to the parent. You do understand, Jinbei, I'm losing quite a lot of power due to this. And this again shows the significance of someone like Big Mom. We know the powerhouses that Big Mom has in her crew, but she's saying losing Jinbei, she's losing a lot of power because she understands the weight or the power, the influence that Jinbei holds as a fishman and as the fishman that a lot of the other fishmen look to as the person to follow. And of course, she was thinking about her sweets as well from Fishman Island, but Jinbei being added to the Straw Hat crew, the significance is being overlooked. We have an idea of how strong Jinbei is and what he adds to the crew. That's a conversation for another day where we'll rank the monster trio as far as like where Jinbei slots in now. But I thought it was really interesting how much influence Jinbei as a character has and how many people he's actually interacted with, had some influence over, the power shift that comes with him joining the Straw Hats. Not to mention his abilities as a fishman and as a helmsman. He's adding so much to this crew. And something that isn't normally talked about with Jinbei is how good a person he is. Like at Marineford, Jinbei, he was feeling guilt, right? And gratitude as well, because Luffy was the one who defeated Arlong, who Jinbei, I guess, took responsibility for letting loose on the world, right? For Arlong wreaking havoc in East Blue and, the impact it had on Nami, he felt bad about that. And for him, he felt like he could repay Luffy by saving Ace. And even after everything that happened, he was, accompanying Luffy to Marineford. He helped Luffy in several moments. Even after Ace got impaled, Jinbei was there to stop Akainu from attacking again. And then even going past that, when he was trying to save Luffy after Luffy passed out from just the pain, just the anguish, he was able to take a blow from Akainu through the chest, through the stomach. Of course, Luffy got hit as well, but he's saving Luffy this entire time. I think Jinbei is the epitome of loyalty, respect. Because of how he's lived his life, he's garnered respect from every faction of the One Piece world. And I don't think it's any coincidence that someone like this joined the Straw Hat crew. I mean, I've always talked about balance between the supernovas, but I think it's clear now Luffy's the leader of the new school. I mean, it's always been clear, but you always felt like maybe Law or Kid had a chance. I think you don't realize just how significant Jinbei joining the crew is until you actually see him join the crew. Like him being a part of them, and you think about his influence and what he brings to the crew, it is no contest. Something I didn't even mention is Jinbei's leadership and what he brings. We saw how much leadership was important in Whole Cake Island and different things he did to take over and get them through certain situations. So now that being a permanent part of the Straw Hats, it really adds a lot. But guys, it was just something that was on my mind, just how big of a deal Jinbei is, how important he is, how much depth there is to his character in which he feels some guilt, remorse, and then he's also supporting Luffy as much as he can. Even when he was talking to his crew and he was saying, you know what, I'm leaving and I'm going to join the Straw Hats, they said, well, you know what, you've talked about him a lot and we support you. And then again, Jinbei and his loyalty, he could have gotten away with the Straw Hats, leaving Whole Cake Island, but he decided to go back for his crew because he did not want to see them perish at the hands of the Big Mom pirates. Amazing character, loyal, because even in Fishman Island, him and Luffy had that scuffle, which he's telling Luffy, you can't be the one to do it. You need to be a hero because of what's happened in the past with Fishman. You can't do this. Even with Capone, Jinbei was one to clear Luffy's head and say, hey, this alliance makes sense. So he is not only a negotiator, he's someone that can get through to Luffy. After Marineford in Amazon Lily, he was the one who told Luffy, you know, what's gone is gone. You still have your crew. These are things you can look forward to. So again, this is amazing for the Straw Hats. But I think this is scary for the One Piece world. That's why Law and Kid reacted that way, because they understand this former warlord, this big shot, this former captain, former right hand of Fisher Tiger, he's now joining the Straw Hats, in addition to what they already have. mind-blowing. So guys, give me your thoughts. How do you feel about Jinbei? I think he's pretty significant as a character. Make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Follow me on Twitter at BroggerDH. Follow me on Instagram, broggerD.ace. Thank you to my patrons. I appreciate you guys so much. Again, guys, make sure to like and subscribe. I shall catch you in the next one. Peace.